It was built around the year 1280, and the handsome tower was added about a century later. Here we're at the back of the nave, looking towards the chancel, and here is the high altar. The Marian banner is said to be the work of nuns, the Sisters of St Mary the Virgin Wantage, and it dates from the latter years of the 19th century. The candlesticks and the cross on the side table were the work of Italian prisoners of war during the course of World War II. Curiously, they were painted in gold and blue by Joy Wilkinson, who later married an ex-German prisoner of war, Fritz Munkelt. While we're talking about the prisoner of war camp, which was situated at the top of the village on the Ertlingborough Road, I have with me John Bilson, who was born in the village, mid-50s, and you were telling me that the camp was built around about 1943.
I think it was certainly built in the early 40s, but not right at the beginning of the war. We have plans of the farm in 1943, which doesn't show prisoner of war camp on the land. Given that plans and maps are usually out of date by a couple of years, that would suggest that it might well have been built in 42, something like that.
Right. That date of a building around about 42, 43 would make sense. As you say, the tide of war turned, particularly with the Battle of El Alamein in 1943, when a lot of Italians were captured and they would have had to find accommodation for them in England. So it could very well have been that that's when the prisoner of war camp was built. Anyway, there it is. We have an excellent picture of it. This is known as the Italian prisoner of war camp, but it may very well have been that there were some Germans here, particularly towards the end of the war. Now, you were telling me that your father, Tony, came across an ex-POW when he was out of the country.
Yes, my father was on a farming tour of the United States in 1965, with a group of farming friends, and they were visiting a tractor factory, and whilst there, one of the employees asked them where they were from, and father said, well, we come from Northamptonshire, the middle part of England. So this chap said to him, well, whereabouts? My father said, well, just a very small village I farm in. So when my father said Little Addington, he then said, well, I was a prisoner of war in the camp at Little Addington. My father said that he was a German prisoner of war, not an Italian. I understand that in the latter stages of the war there were a number of Germans interned in this camp. That's just the story that my father told me.
As World War II continued, more and more Italian soldiers became prisoners of war and were accommodated in camps throughout the United Kingdom. To a man, they were Roman Catholics, and in all of their camps they erected their own chapel. This is a picture of the camp chapel at Little Addington, late in the war. By and large, the Italians were glad to be out of the war, and they showed no inclination to escape. During the course of the war, they did valuable work. In the Little Addington camp, many of them worked on the local farms, taking the place of soldiers from the village who were in the forces. They did many other useful jobs around the village. The water supply for Chancel Cottage, for instance, was installed by Italian POWs. Many of the Italians had fond memories of their time in Little Addington. Here we see quite a few of them on a group photograph with their priest. One of them, Antonio Gianni, stayed here after the war. He married an Ertlingborough girl. He became a farm manager. His children still live in Ertlingborough. And this man, Signore Castcorrado, came back to visit Little Addington in 1996. And here he is. The prisoner of war camp, of course, is no more, and today the site is occupied by the industrial estate at the top of the village on the Ertlingborough Road.